I want to take a minute, guys, and just invite you to join the Baron Market Edge private member group. You guys can do that by just clicking the link down in our description. This is your insider's edge to the AI and crypto money revolution, which is what we really focus on here on PBN. This is additional research that I do along with our team. We have a pretty significant team on our research around not only what guides our episodes, but a lot of that research gets built into more content that I drop here on the Baron Market Edge. We do market trends and sentiment analysis, which can be anything from tokens to all sorts of strategies. This, of course, will also guide you over to our Telegram group, and we give this as elite community access. You get bonus content over there, including tax guides, as well as different kinds of asset guides out there that we drop all the time. This is your 10-year vision in action. All you have to do, of course, is just hit that little subscribe button or join the community and get in on it. It's absolutely free. It doesn't cost you a thing, so check it out. Welcome back to another episode of the XRP podcast. Today is going to be stellar because of course, we'll be having Dom and Phil coming on here in just a minute. You guys, they are a fan favorite of the show. We've got them back. We're going to be talking about all sorts of things hitting the market right now. Mastercard making moves, Goldman Sachs piling into the XRP ETFs. We'll talk about clarity. We'll talk about where the market could be heading, along with some other things around AI agents. So stick around for all that good stuff. You guys know what to do. Make sure and hit the like and subscribe button. That's the one thing I want you to try to do every time, because if you're brand new to the show, what we're finding out is a lot of you are watching, but you're not subscribing. So what's up with that? Go ahead and do that right now. And another thing, if you guys want to get early access to some of these content pieces, we have launched the member program for you. You asked about it. I'm doing lives each week with our member only group. So you can do that just by any membership in the program here on YouTube. You'll be able to get to the live. In addition, if you get into the XRP Insider, you'll get early access to some of the shows just like this. All right, let's get into it today. It is going to be a banger. Let's go in. And of course, I want to bring in Phil and Dom coming over from EasyA. How are you guys?
Very well. Thanks very much, guys.
Nice to see you. So you're on the whirlwind tour, it sounds like, this week, coming in from London, heading into New York. Give me the high notes on what you guys are up to this week. What's happening?
So a couple of things that we can start off with why we were in London. Some people may have seen our pictures from the House of Lords. So we were there together with MPs, Lords, and really people who are high up within government. What we are working on is, of course, to make sure that at the highest levels in the UK, in the US, of course, two of the leading nations in terms of digital assets and technologies, that we have this combined approach together. And of course, we're in New York right now, so we're broadcasting live at the moment from New York, meeting with more of those institutions out here. We're just right now about 2 minutes away from Wall Street. So institutions on the banking side. And then next week, we'll be heading to DC to really wrap this all up. So we'll have everybody together from both sides of the pond and also from both sides of the street, so to speak.
Yeah. Dom, when you look at all the things that are happening right now, you look at the legislation coverage that MiCA, of course, has aligned within the EU. You look at possibly what's going on here with Clarity. What do you feel is more important right now, the Clarity component or some of the Wall Street integrations that are happening?
Well, I think Clarity always comes first. When you look at overall legislation, when you look at the landscape, I think the Clarity Act is that sort of overarching umbrella that's really going to set the guidelines for all of these crypto companies. And once you get the regulation, that's when the institutions can come in. I think a big barrier for a lot of institutions so far has been the lack of clarity. And ultimately, they need those rules, they need the guidelines, they need their own legal departments to actually understand how they can interact with crypto and with the industry before they come in a big way. So definitely the Clarity Act, and then the regulations, and then obviously the institutions start coming in. They're coming in already, but obviously Clarity Act will be a game changer for those companies who really want to get in the space, but haven't really been able to do so for fear of, crossing the lines and not really actually being able to unveil products that, follow clear guidelines set by everyone here.
For sure. Well, and one of the things too, because everybody's asking right now, well, what happens if Clarity doesn't make it in time for the midterms? Because it's likely that the Trump administration could lose both the Senate and the House. If that occurs, many people are speculating that Clarity could be dead if it doesn't hit by then. The other factor, of course, you have the SEC that is very pro-crypto. They have already come on record saying that we're going to continue to move along here, really outlining the framework that we believe is going to happen happen. So it really boils down to the Senate trying to get to that point where they can actually get this passed for sure. Has this slowed any of the development down? You guys are obviously working with developers all the time. Of course, I'll bring up the topic of the EasyA event coming up in Miami. So what about developers? Are they concerned at this, or are they just heads down getting at it?
That's a really good question, Paul. And what I'd say is it hasn't slowed anything down per se. I think that just in terms of where we are right now, just about a year on, or more, just over a year ago, if we look at the previous administration where we were, it's to see change. And so I think that the whole industry is really just still feeling the benefits of all this, especially when you look at the developer level. Of course, we saw a big uptick in the markets. The developers are really the leading indicator. And so we look to developers for where the industry is going to be heading within the next 6 to 9 to 12 months, sometimes even shorter than that. And they're still coming in. So Miami, you make a great point bringing that up. The number of developers who are going to be coming to Miami, the number of people is just through the roof. I think that everything is coming back home to the States right now. In terms of what happens when clarity, or if clarity doesn't come through, look, the way that I view clarity is it's going to be just another accelerant. Like, I don't think that the world is waiting necessarily for clarity. I think that, as you mentioned, other key players are still moving ahead. I think the developers are still moving ahead. I just think that if it does come through, it's just going to be another step up in terms of the developers who are coming in. I don't think these developers who are here, and like the people that you've just seen that we hosted at Consensus Hong Kong, that we're going to be hosting in Consensus Miami, these people are diehards. I think what it's a matter of is, are we going to have fresh blood coming in, more fresh blood, and more new ideas, more capital coming into the space than we've previously had than before.
Yeah, and go ahead, Don.
I'm just going to say, I think just to add to Phil's point as well, developers, number one, they're typically pretty forward-thinking people. So they are the ones who want to pioneer a new path. They want to be on the cutting edge. And that's why whenever you see new technologies come out, like AI, everyone rushes to AI, even though there aren't strict regulations around AI. And we see this in crypto too. All the hackathons we host, everything that we do at EasyA, we see a ton of smart people who want to actually be at the forefront. They want to almost be there before the regulations actually come into place. And so I wouldn't say regulations are a real barrier for those developers. Ultimately, I think, in terms of mass adoption, regulations will be a big player, and that's a really important thing to factor in. But for now, for developers, there are still a ton of people interested in crypto, looking to build really cool stuff, on the XRP ledger and other blockchains.
Listen, I put up a post. I'll share this with you guys. This was your favorite XRPL innovators out there, so ledger innovators. This was one that Luke put out from XRP Degens. I kind of gave it some life and said, hey, yeah, go ahead. I want to see all the innovators. We've had quite a few people start to drop in some lists. So if you guys do see this post out there on X, and if you don't, you can drop it in right here on the YouTube channel. I want to see what kind of innovators are out there in the XRP ledger, because I try to follow all of them, but it seems like there's just a huge list of new people coming in. So what do you think has been the case here? Are we at the state of critical mass coming on?
I think what's really interesting is that you're absolutely right. I think every time we go to a new XRP community night or a new XRP event, or we work on a new partnership that we have together with Ripple, for example, we just see so many people that we never even knew in the community. Like, a great example was XRP Las Vegas last year. Of course, we'll be there. I know you'll be there as well, coming up in May, just before Consensus. There's just so many people who are building. And I think that a lot of them haven't necessarily launched yet. That's why we don't necessarily know about those products. But there are so many people who are integrating it, so many people over the past few years who have been building. And it's like, I don't know, Brad Garlinghouse just has this amazing way of putting it, where it's like when you hold a balloon underwater, right? And then, you let it go and suddenly, you have this explosion and boom, right? Everybody knows what that looks like. And I think that that's what we're going to see as we start to get more regulatory clarity, as everything starts to come together. Ripple put out that post recently as well about how they basically have the full stack right now. Payments, custody, treasury, literally the full stack. And I think that when developers now have this all at their fingertips, that's what's going to give them that confidence to be like, you know what? Now is the time.
Right.
Okay. I'm going to launch and everybody's going to know about it. And, we'll be like, what even happened? And in reality, it's just been this build up of many, many years of people building. And we now reach that point where, boom, it's all here.
Well, this is huge. I think, first of all, if you've been in software development at any time in your career out there and you're watching, you guys know the lifeblood to anything that is going to get life under it is the developer community. So what you guys are doing is super important, because this is pretty critical, I think, not only for the XRP ledger, but also some of the other networks that you work with. I know you did Stellar. You've had a chance to work with a lot of developers in a variety of different blockchain platforms. So the key here is that blockchain as a whole is starting to really garner some of the best talent coming out. Do you think we have a chance right now in blockchain devs, or will we start to lose some of them to the AI phase that's starting to occur? What do you guys think?
Well, I think the very interesting thing actually is we're seeing a lot of developers in our community use AI to build things on the blockchain. So I think there's a very good overlap, actually. A lot of the AI tools that allow people to, simply use prompts to actually build applications and write code have been, that's sort of, really been the topic du jour in the blockchain space. And at the hackathons we go to, we see people do things in a couple of hours people couldn't have done in many days and weeks in the past, all because of AI. So I think AI actually is a great tool to enhance blockchain development and make sure that these people are actually much more efficient than they otherwise would be. Of course, people will go into the pure AI routes. You see things like OpenClaw, these amazing different companies that are literally being built by, 1 to 2 people that end up being worth billions. And so obviously, smart people are definitely going to the pure AI side, but we see it as well, people who are interested in blockchain actually using AI to build better blockchain applications. So I think on the whole, it's actually a great thing for the industry as opposed to something that we need to be worried about. And obviously when crypto runs to all-time highs, everyone will come back.
Oh yeah, everybody's screaming back in. I don't know though. We're in the midst of building a project, and I won't tell you guys much about it right now in terms of the audience. But one of the things, of course, that is very critical for us is the Clarity Act. Obviously, if we see that narrative start to really play out, and we get U.S. sanctioned. I shouldn't say sanction. If we get U.S. support, at least from the regulatory side, we as a company are looking at really doubling down on building out some new components within the blockchain around media that I'm not sure we can do just yet, even though the SEC will probably would put us in that incubator club of early innovators. But I'm a little bit concerned about it, especially in deploying any capital, the major capital, which is the thing that, that I think about. Obviously, with these kind of things. Speaking of that, Wall Street comes in on the XRP ETFs. You have Goldman Sachs, of course, showing up. And this was an interesting news item. I'll bring it up real quick. Wall Street enters the XRP ETF, inflows hitting 1.4 billion. Goldman Sachs becomes the top holder on XRP ETFs. You look at this and you just wonder, what else is being not told to us when it comes to these ETFs? Are we going to see more activity coming in from the institutions on this? What do you guys think?
Definitely. I mean, I put a post out actually about this around about a year ago now.
Yep.
With respect to BlackRock ETFs, XRP ETFs as well. I think ultimately when you look at these different institutions, they want to go where they can actually find the most money. I mean, financial services companies, their number one goal is ultimately to make money. And when you have an asset like XRP, which has so much liquidity, so many different holders, it's, number 3 biggest crypto in the world after Bitcoin and Ethereum. And in my view, will actually be bigger than Ethereum in the not too distant future. And ultimately, I think, that's why they're so attracted to XRP. And, as well, when you look at retail audience, XRP has a massive, massive holder base. If you look at something like Bitcoin, a lot of the Bitcoin is really held by, number 1, a very small fraction of people in terms of, you look at the whales and all of those people. And when new people come into crypto, Bitcoin isn't necessarily the first one they want to dip their toes in with. XRP is a really uniquely positioned asset. Obviously, ultimately, we do so much work on the XRP ledger and together with teams building on the XRP ledger because we're so bullish on it. But yeah, ultimately, all of these institutions you're seeing here, they want to get a piece of XRP.
I'm looking at the 500,000 XRP holding and above, and I'll just throw in a few names in there. You got Jane Street in here, DRW, Gallagher, Citadel, and then of course Millennium, and then Goldman right there at the top. So pretty interesting.
All the biggest, the best hedge funds in the world, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, this is a lineup of, they know what's up. They understand where this is heading. So I think it's just a matter of time as we start to see institutional adoption. The other thing that is interesting to me is the integration that we're starting to see already in the rails starting to occur. Mastercard put out a statement that was pretty striking. And I think the key here is, and I'm gonna show this to you guys because I don't normally retweet Mastercard, and I even said I never thought I would see that I'd retweet Mastercard. But I did. But here you go. Digital assets entering a new phase. What's parallel to existing financial systems is increasingly be applied to solve the practical real world needs. This is intriguing because obviously Ripple, you saw that just fly through. SoFi's and their Solanas. And I mean, listen, almost everyone, they're partnered with 85 different projects and companies to integrate real world asset and real world needs around remittances. And you look at what Mastercard is doing, and many people would say, well, maybe there is a play here that is going to try to bypass the banks, because you look at the merchant services, the real fees are held at the bank level, not on the processor themselves. What do you guys make of this partnership that they've done with all these companies?
100%. And I think you make a really interesting point, actually, when you talk about the banks. Obviously, one of the big opposing parties to getting the Clarity Act done has been the banking lobby. And that is because they are super scared of the benefits of crypto and what crypto can do for the regular everyday person. Obviously, lower fees, banks won't be getting their fees, crypto, so many different staking options can actually give crypto holders much higher yields than traditional bank accounts can on the interest rate side. Ultimately, crypto is a huge threat to the traditional banking model. Not to mention, when you think about stablecoins are, for the large part, backed one-to-one. And so for every coin that you get, there is actually something on the other end backing it. Whereas banks, they are run on fractional reserves. And so for every dollar you give them, the bank doesn't necessarily have to have a dollar on the other end, which not many people realize, but it's an extremely risky thing if things go south. So ultimately, crypto is, again, the better alternative to the banks. And I think partnerships like these are great first steps into actually paving that way. You see companies like Stripe even getting into crypto. Stripe's one of the biggest payment processors used by a ton of pretty much every major company out there to process payments. And obviously Mastercard here in terms of the actual, personal finance side and, the cards. And ultimately, yeah, I think this is a great first step, and we'll start to see more and more, because once a big player like Mastercard starts to do it, then all of the other ones will also have to start, because, people want to, all these different companies end up following each other, just like you see with the banks and the ETFs, etc.
You hit on a couple of points there, which I think are very important. And that is because banks have been calling for, hey, we just want to level the playing field. And I think when you look at it, well, if you're leveling the playing field, why would you not give the crypto companies the ability to do fractional reserve as opposed to the requirement, which is 1-to-1? You buy a stable coin, you hold a US Treasury, versus what banks have been able to do with our dollars, which is lending them out 9 times over. I'm surprised at how many people do not understand fractional reserve banking that are in business. I mean, this is crazy how unknown this is.
Yeah, and there was one of our friends actually out in the Valley. He is a very successful startup founder, graduated from Stanford, raised a ton of money for his startup, and also raised a fund. And he had, for his startup, he had his money for his startup's funds in Silicon Valley Bank. And he had for his fund in First Republic. And around the banking crisis that happened, this would have been around a couple of years now. Literally, he was like, over the weekend, he was like, oh my God, I'm going to lose all of my company's money and also all of the funds that I just raised for my VC fund. And he was just absolutely sweating. He phoned up his LPs and he was like, guys, I'm just going to come clean, put it in banks, probably shouldn't have. And I think it just sent a shockwave through Silicon Valley, and it sort of actually made people realize, oh, wait, actually there are some systemic risks there. And you're right, Paul, like even the smartest people in the Valley, the people who are building the cutting edge of crypto, blockchain, AI, they don't necessarily, really internalize it until it happens. I'd say, yeah, maybe the crypto guys actually, they understand it, but not so much, even the smartest people in the world working on some of the hardest core tech. But I think, it's also testament to how strong the banking lobby is. Ultimately, the fact that you can even do something like that and actually take people's money, then do other things with it, and only actually hold a fraction of it, really is quite surprising. Again, it's a good testament to the fact that these banks and these traditional financial institutions are seriously scared of the promises of crypto, because they can get away with things like that. Once, stable coins actually come into play, once they go into mass adoption, they're going to be a no-brainer for people to actually use and a place to store their money, as opposed to these banks that number one, don't really have a great customer experience, and number two, you don't even necessarily have full access to your funds if you need it.
Exactly. Well, that's the issue that continues to be the problem right now. I mean, we've been banking, and I can attest to this. We've been banking between two major banks. We often do ACH transfers. Have been working with these banks for, I don't know, over a decade. The other day, I had an interesting note that came up. We put in a sizable transfer of over the 10K mark, which I think is the trigger, when you deal with a 10K transfer. It goes from one bank to the other. In the past, most of the time, it's a transaction to what they call T+1 or T+2, 1 to 2 days, basically. I get a notice from the bank, 12-day hold on a customer that's been with them for 10 years.
How much above the 10K mark was that?
Yeah, just a little bit above it. That's the point. Is I'm like, excuse me, what is that?
Yeah.
That's the exact same thing that I'm getting at, is the problem that we deal with, which we do not deal with in crypto, obviously. But I'm showing here, James Thorne, he put out a nice statement here about this. Banks are aggressively fighting the Clarity and Digital Asset Clarity Act, stalling in the Senate. Their argument of platforms like Coinbase and Circle off 2 to 4% on stablecoin balances, that even activity-based incentives. So they're coming after, because remember, the original plan was, okay, we're going to let this fly, but if you're not doing anything with it, no stablecoin. If you're active on it, okay, we'll give, maybe we'll talk that through. They're already backing away that. So they're talking about even activity-based incentives, which would siphon trillions in deposits from traditional banks, is what their statement is, which hasn't happened already, considering that you can earn so much more in money markets today, and in stable coins today, right now. Why hasn't it happened? What's the reason here? So I'm just, the hypocrisy right there. Here you go, though. Mastercard already enables crypto rewards cards that let users earn Bitcoin and ETH. This is Mastercard doing this. So, and then you've got Gemini up here on 4% cash back. You've got MetaMask, which is setting up to launch 3%. You've got X getting ready to launch X Money, which is trying to pay 6%. So I don't understand this. When you look at this, it seems to me like this is definitely regulatory capture going forward. What are your anticipations on Clarity? I know you guys are meeting in DC with the Senate Banking Committee. What are you going to say to them?
I think the big thing for us is really what we've learned. I've talked about this before. It's like fitting together these different pieces of the puzzle. Because for me, and we've been in the space for a long time, since 2013 now, and it's been a constant piece of just figuring out which bit of the puzzle pieces are we missing. Like, as you said, Paul, it feels like the system is here. Why isn't everything happening, right? Why isn't everything just happening all at once, since it is so much of a better system? And I think getting to know all these politicians a little bit more, getting to know these decision makers, getting to know the staff more, it's just more of a case of them actually not really understanding the system and what we are trying to build here. I think that when you look at it from the perspective of somebody who's not really living and breathing, I mean, we're here living and breathing crypto. You're here living and breathing crypto. I think even people who are watching this podcast are definitely amongst the very, very early few who live and breathe crypto. And have a really good understanding for it. But if you look at these people, you go into these rooms, we're in the House of Lords in the UK, we've been obviously, out here as well with politicians out here in the States. We'll be in DC next week. People that actually don't really understand what on earth crypto is. And they just think it's like some sort of Ponzi scheme or just like this dangerous system. I think with stable coins, obviously you've got the bankers who actually kind of understand now what it is, and they're kind of scared of it because it's potentially going to eat their lunch. But I think, our job really going into these meetings and going into meeting with these decision makers and lawmakers, it's really actually to help them understand what it actually is that we're trying to build, that we're trying to build a system that is better for consumers, that's actually fairer, and actually, isn't this crazy thing that's anything to be scared of. It's actually quite simple. It is just a much better system. So I think that's what we want to do. And that's obviously what we're going to be doing over the course of the next, it's going to be a mad dash through the next 2 weeks, really, to try and, as you said, get this thing, passed before the midterms. I'm just going to add to what Phil said, in terms of Clarity Act and in terms of the people who actually write the legislations and help get it all passed. Like Phil said, education is the key. And that's why we ultimately founded EasyA many years ago. If you don't know about something, if you don't understand it, it's very hard to obviously make the legislation, but then even advocate for it. It's always great when we're on Twitter and when we're interacting with everyone and we see all these people who actually understand the promise of crypto, who actually understand the benefits, and they don't have to be experts. Many of them aren't professional crypto developers even. We interact with so many different people on X, so many amazing people doing all sorts of different careers, completely unrelated to tech even sometimes. sometimes, but they understand the benefits and they approach it from a neutral lens. I think oftentimes when you look at people who are maybe in power, they have different interests, they have different goals as well. And obviously combine that with the fact that you don't really understand the premise, it's very hard, of course, to get good legislation. And that's why for us, it's been so important to actually meet with them. We meet with the SEC. We want to meet with all of these different people. We'd like to set a banking committee as well in DC, which we're going to do in the next couple of days, and ultimately show them, this is why you should be excited about crypto, and these are the benefits that crypto can give the average person.
Well, and I understand. I've talked to many senators and House reps, and a lot of times, kind of the off-camera discussions are always asking me, but Paul, do normal everyday people care about this? Because, that's the voter base, right? I understand where they're coming from because they probably look at crypto and it's an early adoption phase. If many of them lived around through the dot-bomb era, they probably had a chance to kind of experience this in terms of the curve of adoption that will take place. That is a bit of a concern of mine, is that we don't have enough people that are regular everyday business and regular working Americans that want to reach out and understand what kind of impact this is going to have on them. One thing that we have done is we have launched something for you guys, and I'm going to air it here for the very first time. And that is, we've done a petition here that is essentially going to get to a level. It's over on change.org. I'll leave a link in there. Defending the American right to earn a fair return on savings. This is stopping banks from banning the stablecoin build. We put the issue in here to make everyday Americans understand what the issue is. We're supporting it. We're getting behind it. And we're going to help push this through at least to the Senate Banking Committee if we can get 100,000 subscribers, or I should say signatures, going forward. So literally, this just went live this morning. This is the first time this has ever been shown to anyone. So you guys watching, now you can just jump in on that petition right now, sign it. There's no obligation to you other than if you support it. That's the main thing for sure. So get in on that. Let's talk about one more thing, because this could shift some of the dynamic away from everything that's happening in DC around banks and move right over to Elon Musk. And there you go. Early access, right there is his tweet. Early access, public access will begin next month in April for X money. So stable coins, global remittances most likely available. We think XRP will be potentially a backbone for this. And then you've got Doge potentially as a maybe even as a tool for the creator economy that could be on X itself, which could create some kind of commerce there. What do you guys think happens with this right now? I mean, there's 600 million users right now on X.
I think what is going on right now is I feel like it's very interesting. You look at Elon Musk and what he did with, originally PayPal, of course, part of the original PayPal mafia. And I think that he's going to run a similar playbook to what he did. So I think in the short term, what he's going to do is he has said, there's going to be sort of around potentially 6% interest that people will be able to get. Certain people have been, posting things about that as well that they received. And I think that he's going to be running the same playbook as to what happens next after that. Once he's got that user base, then I think the key thing as well, we look at how is that really going to be funded, right? I think, there's a lot of speculation. Maybe it's going to be funded by a mixture of, just some loss leaders, right? You just pay out money to acquire users. But then what happens when you actually then when you want to make that more sustainable? And I think that, one of the best ways to do that is, of course, through stablecoins. I mean, ties into the Clarity Act as well. That really ties into bringing this on chain and allowing users and getting that DeFi yield, right? So I think that is what I'm really excited about. I think, it's the short term. Obviously, it's really exciting. It's really cool, just as a great fintech consumer product. But what I'm excited about in crypto is how actually this maybe provides the way in for crypto to get access to one of the biggest user bases in the world. And of course, into an app which actually can't monetize the normal ways, because because it is so censorship free, has actually deterred a lot of revenue that would have been brought in via ads, right? So advertisers don't necessarily want to advertise. That's why they pushed X subscriptions so much. It's why they pushed the alternative monetization strategies. I think that's what's going to really interestingly actually push them towards DeFi and looking at other protocols which are going to allow them to actually monetize that way. And I think that's what we're seeing with this. We're going to have a company that actually is very, very well positioned to really take on board some of the many benefits of crypto in terms of being censorship resistant, really aligning with all of that. So I think, next sort of 3 or so months, I'm excited to see this app launch. Next 6 to 12 months, I'm excited to see where this lies in terms of DeFi and actually being integrated there.
I wonder if Elon has on the roadmap to remove advertising and essentially go to creator, to audience payments, which, if you think about it, that would essentially be an advertisement in essence. If you're a creator out there, they've already amped up the amount they're paying to creators based off of the ad share. If they go to that level and do a true creator support mechanism, that may be the model going forward. I don't know. He's probably crazy enough to try it, to get away from the advertising, because he's had a little bit of a rub with advertisers. For sure.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think if you look at what other players are doing in the industry, you look at, for example, Tether and their investments in Warp, which is another
Rumble
creator economy, exactly, Rumble as well. They are getting in because they realize that actually there's a lot of payments rails which rub not so nicely against these applications which don't want to bow down to censorship. It's the payments rails, it's the advertisers, it's all that. I think this could be the beginning of this switch, which accelerates the switch of these applications into crypto.
Well, and it does create a new philosophy, because there's a lot of different functions that essentially would be centered around payments beyond what we would see around information sharing, subscription models, all sorts of things that could eventually find their way into X, which I think I saw him respond to. He put up a poll, and I'll have to bring it in, but he put up a poll asking his audience, have you ever bought anything off of an ad on X? Did you guys see that poll?
No, I didn't actually, no.
So Elon did it. He tweets so much, otherwise I'd pull it up right now. He put up the poll. It was overwhelming. It was 99% of people said no. And his response was just one word: interesting. So he knows.
It's also good for his advertisers to see that.
Yeah, he knows his advertisers probably are watching this going, this is what I'm paying you for, is to get people to buy stuff. So it clearly isn't working on X. So maybe that's why we're seeing X money. And I know he's been talking about it for a while, but I mean, this seems like it's on hyperspeed right now.
I think it's, obviously over the last couple of years, as more people have come onto the internet, as more social media platforms have come up, I think ads have also become much less effective than they used to be. Number two, I think the really interesting thing with X money is you really have to zoom out and see that this is also another way that the banks are being challenged. Ultimately, you've had all of these different consumer apps like Coinbase, Robinhood, which I think you mentioned in your post as well, huge consumer apps that ultimately aim to deliver the end user a much better experience than traditional banks. And obviously X Money is going to be the latest addition to that. And I think ultimately you can think of all these different angles as chipping away at the traditional banking system. And it's only a matter of time till the end user, the average consumer, gets a much better banking experience through companies like these, through the tech companies, not through the banks actually themselves. And I think over the next couple of years, we'll start to see the banks fade away, and obviously the new applications start to really take center stage. And the really interesting thing that I think a lot of people often forget is that Nikita Beer, who is the head of product at X, is actually a very bullish person on crypto. So he is, of course, an advisor.
The connection is there for sure.
Yeah, exactly. And I think a lot of people forget that when they think, oh, he's doing things to, silence the crypto creators. I don't think that's necessarily the case. I think they're actually quite forward thinking when it comes to crypto. So yeah, very excited about X Money for sure.
Well, getting it out of the crypto X algorithm and into the mainstream algorithm, I think is very important, because to go mainstream, you have to start being able to make it easy to understand and easy to effectuate. I mean, this is the thing, when we do our webinars here or our seminars here in South Florida with businesses, this is exactly the thing. We're just doing them for free. They are designed to help business owners really understand crypto. And we brought up the whole scenario around fractional reserve banking, and it was like we discovered, the wheel. we talked about it. I was like, people just really, I mean, you have to assume sometimes we're inside the bubble too much. I think, we assume everybody understands this.
Well,
level.
That's why the show that you do is so good. And, similar shows to this are so good because they're super easy to understand for the regular person. People can, tune into one. They can actually figure out what's going on. It's topics that relate to the average person as well. And that's why we always love coming on your show as well. And the work that you do is incredible to actually make it accessible to everyone, and very similar to our goals at EasyA as well.
Hey, listen, at the end of the day, guys, we do this really just like everybody else. And that is to get enough knowledge around this that makes these investments go up at some point. The idea is that if any of our conversations can help people discover, financial freedom in any way, that's the greatest thing I think that anybody can do. So definitely a big one right now. I know you guys have a lot going on. You're going to be coming to Miami for the hackathon here on the Consensus. So I'll see you there. I'll probably see you at XRP Vegas as well. I know you're doing some stuff there.
A really exciting plan for XRP Las Vegas actually this year. So
I hear. Yeah. We won't say anything about what it is. Come to XRP Vegas. You'll get the chance to see.
You'll be at Hackathon too, right? Your team will be at filming and diving into what people are building. We can announce it formally soon, but Ripple will be one of the big participants in the hack. So we're very excited to see a ton of smart people build on the XRP ledger in person. So anyone who's in Miami or nearby, definitely come swing by.
Yeah, it's going to be fun to do for sure. We're going to be there because we're going to try to uncover some of the innovators that, of course, are building on not only the ledger, but also just in general in blockchain, because there's a lot of projects out there that need to get some of the light into them. For those that are interested, I'm more intrigued by the developers themselves, because the stories behind why they're doing what they're doing is very intriguing to me. Because many people are, listen, they're trying to make a way for their family. Maybe they're doing something because they really have a passion about it, or they have shifted away from the mindset of working for someone. And now they're thinking differently, which is great. To see those kind of innovations happening. So we'll definitely be covering that and more. A lot of stuff happening out there. We'll cover this topic along with others the next time Dom and Phil come back. We'll probably have some more information to share about what's happening. Make sure and hit the petition. I'll leave a link for that as well down in the bottom for you guys. Can anybody attend the hackathon? What's the rules?
Yeah. So everything we do is free for the average person. So make sure you just apply. So you apply. What we'll do is we will see on the back end who's applied, and everyone who is, in our eyes, a good fit for the hack will get a free ticket. And you'll also get a free ticket to Consensus Miami, which is the huge conference, of course, that's going to be happening alongside. Everything happens at Consensus, the hackathon, all of the different activations. It all happens there in Miami at the convention center, which is going to be, it's going to be the biggest event pretty much of the year, the biggest crypto event. So definitely apply. And if you know us, shoot us a message on Twitter. We can expedite your application as well. But would love to see you all there.
54 days away. Jump right over there to the registration, and you will be in right there. So that's where you can apply.
Exactly.
So get in as a dev if you're out there. Dom and Phil, thanks so much for coming in today. I can't wait to hear more about your adventures in New York and DC coming up this next few weeks. So we'll get a chance to talk more about those later, okay?
Cool. Thanks for having us. Always a pleasure to be on.
Yeah. All right. You guys know what to do. Always like and subscribe. And of course, we will catch you next time right here on the XRP podcast. Take care.